Welcome to Run, Build, Grow, the podcast that laces up its running shoes and dives deep into the heartbeat of the communal spirit of running. I'm your host, Andrew Ware, the Runnin' Rev, and I'm thrilled to take you on this exhilarating journey where we explore stories that go beyond the pavement. And on this episode, I am excited to welcome in Tommie Runz. Y'all, this is one that I have wanted to get on for a while as someone who has consumed running content a lot, especially in the last 5 years. Tommie is someone who is out there. He is on running Instagram. He is all over the place, and he has such an inspiring story, and I love it so much. I wanted to get him on. Thank you, Mac, for kind of opening this door for me to help me to get Tommie on to share this amazing story. You know, he talks about all of these different ways, different things that have gotten him to where he is, and what it means for him to tell his story and the impact that communities like his family, like the run club that he is a part of in Detroit, like those who are around him, like all those in the national, international space that help to support him. I mean, this story is just filled with so much amazingness. And so I'm not going to share it. I'm going to let Tommie share it. Let's dive into this amazing conversation. All right, welcome in, everybody. Today I'm joined by Tommie Runz. Tommie, how you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. We're getting some nice, cooler weather down here in the 757, but I think y'all been there for a while up there in Detroit. Down in Hampton Roads.
Hampton Roads. Okay, yeah. Well, yeah. It's colder here, I think, than it is in Hampton Roads, but yeah, I think we're all getting hit with some type of weather we don't want right now.
Oh man, yeah, I hear that one. All right, well, let's start this podcast out where I like to start it, because as we talk about community here, it's always great to hear about that here at the top. So, Tommie, what is your community and what makes your community awesome?
Man, I guess my community is just I guess I feel like I have two communities. I feel like I have the sober or sobriety or addiction community. I think that I wouldn't be here without making that turn back in 2017. And then my second community is just, I feel like it's like the running community as a whole. Like I live in the Detroit area. We run 313. So like those are the homies, and I have a small group of people that I run with fairly consistently. But if I was to like say community, I think it would just really just be, like all of it. I try my best to branch out and be around and not have everything, because we have run clubs in the area, obviously, like we run 313 and Society Track Club over in Grand Rapids. But, I feel like they do such a great job at like cultivating actual, physical community. So I think it's like the job of people like me who create online and create opportunities for people to connect online or on Instagram and all those other things. I think it's like it's our jobs to like make it like connect it all together if possible or whenever possible.
Yeah, and for many of y'all listening, you might see Tommie all over Instagram, all over every place. Really bringing a lot of these communities together, which is this amazing thing. He talks about Society Track Club. Many of our folks will remember Mac being on a couple weeks back, but also bringing into this space sort of that running, almost like running influencer kind of thing, where you're helping to get the word out about running. And I know there's like a lot of stigma around that because a lot of people may have different feelings, but what has it meant for you to kind of bring this journey of running to so many folks across such a landscape of the world even?
I don't know if I'm bringing it to, like, I guess I wouldn't, maybe I have brought running to some folks. But I feel like I'm just done an okay job of like tapping into, folks that are kind of new to the space, and or been running forever. It's been fun. It's been an honor to do so. But yeah, I feel like it's it's a gift really to be able to be in these spaces and to be, to be in Berlin running a marathon and be able to, build community in that sense and be there and connect with people in real life. And then same thing for Chicago, New York, or wherever we end up going. It's an honor to be able to do that. And I guess like people would definitely, categorize me as an influencer, and I've always kind of pushed back on that, just because whenever I think of an influencer, I think of something, I think of something slightly different than me, or maybe I just want to like distinguish within myself, like, what is my influence, on running, or people that come in contact with my story, because I don't want my thing to be known as like, a good salesman for brands necessarily. I'd like for my thing to be known as like a good connector of like opportunities and people. Which, if that ends up being like an influencer, I'd hope my influence is like, maybe someone decides like to, do a dry December or dry January and extends it a little further, or just decides like, oh, well, he made a big change in my life. Maybe I can make a small one that would help, my life, or influence somebody to say like, if he can run 6, major marathons in 1 year, maybe I could like sign up for a half marathon. Like, you know what I mean? Like that's, if it's influencing in a real life, like tangible way, like that, then I guess that's the influencer I want to be. So, I'm not even sure if I'm answering your question at this point, but yeah, that's the goal.
No, yeah. Well, and I think that there's such a joy and like a purity in that sort of understanding of helping to influence folks, because when we look at the running community, when we look at all the folks that are running, we want them to have the best experience running as possible. And whether that means, gear or things like that, but even more so about the lifestyle of how we're putting that running lifestyle as something that they want to achieve. And so, what has your running journey looked like? Because, I was scrolling through your Instagram a little bit earlier, just kind of getting another prep for this interview. But, you go back a while and you're, in the 3.5 hour range in marathons, but that's not the whole story of getting there to what you just mentioned of doing all 6 majors in 1 year. There's been a lot of part of your story that has really built into this. And so, who is Tommie the runner instead of Tommie, always thinking about Tommie as like someone who's on Instagram or, at the running event and all of these things? Who is Tommie the runner, and what got you to where you are right now?
Well, yeah, like, so I started, I chose like sobriety, or was able to go that path like in January 2017. And after that, like I kind of took a look a few weeks or so after sobriety and some time away from just a very short period of time away from drinking and anything else. I, kind of like started to look at myself in the mirror and was like, you know what, like I'm not necessarily happy with what I'm looking at. Like, not even like necessarily, I don't like what I'm looking at. Let's just be frank. Like I don't like it. I don't, I need to do something, and I'm like, that at the moment meant go to the gym, start lifting weights and get fit and try to see if I could like, get reattached to like my physical like body pretty much, and I used all the time and energy that I had now that I'm not like, drinking in the morning, in the middle of the day type stuff. I started going to the gym, like, and I was 6-7 days in the gym just because like that felt good. It made me feel like I was moving in a good direction. I was gaining momentum. I could start seeing some changes that I liked. Changed my name to Tommie Guns on Instagram, and I was just like lifting, and it was fun, and I felt good about myself. And then I got invited to do a half marathon in 2018. It was a rock and roll half marathon in Chicago, and it was for like to help raise money for a charity called Move for Hunger. If you're listening to this, look it up because it's a great organization. And then I ran it, and like, but at that moment I'm like, wow, this is really cool. Like, I like how it feels. I like the whole process. It was harder than I thought it was going to be. I thought like, I could be able to go from lifting weights and doing burpees to like, like running easily through a half marathon, which is not the case. And then I slowly just started running more and more. Really got into it, started running half marathons and 5Ks and stuff, and then decided that I wanted to run the full marathon because I wanted to qualify for Boston. Like my sister was like, "You run a half marathons in a time that you probably could qualify for Boston if you worked harder." And so we looked it up, figured it out, and at the time I would have needed to break 3. I think I would have had to go sub 3 for the first time. And so I got a coach right away because I'm like, I want to do this quickly. I don't want to be doing this for like, I just was like, if I could do it now, I'll do it now. So I got a coach. Me and the coach, ran the Free Press Marathon in Detroit. That was my first marathon. I ran 3:13:30, and then I was like getting ready to try to qualify for Boston the next like spring in Glass City, but then COVID hit in 2020, and then I finally qualified for Boston for the first time in my second marathon. My second marathon was 2:48:40 something. And then ever since then, I'm running. I love the process. I love being out there. I love running with my friends. And I'm all about it seems like I'm all about pushing myself to the next limit, to the next level and all those other things. But really it's like these opportunities have come along, and it's not like I didn't set out to run all 6, whether it probably looks like I did, but I didn't even know I had the first 3 kind of happened. And then I'm like, well, I don't want to have to do the first 3 again. Let's see if we can try to figure this out for the last 3. But it was I have these random opportunities to do these things, and why would you say no to an opportunity to go, run a marathon that's a major marathon or in another country, or even if it's just down the road, if somebody says, hey, we'd like for you to come run this, why wouldn't you take that opportunity? So I'm the sporadic runner. If you invite me somewhere and I think it's cool and I got some time to get ready for it, we're doing it.
And who are those folks along the journey? You've named a couple of them, but just who are those folks along the journey that inspired you to start going after these goals?
My sister was the one who was like, hey, let's, she was like, I think you could run. She's a runner. She jogs and stuff like that. She wouldn't call herself a runner, but she definitely is. But she was like, you should try this whole Boston thing because I think it would be cool. Because I lived in Boston for in the Boston area for 6 years, from 2007 to 13 or 14. So she was the one that kind of started that. She actually just dropped the book the other day, so it was actually really, really cool. I'm super proud of her. But and then I think a lot of it was just this evolution of me trying to just do more and be better. And then I found my friends through We Run 313. My friend Joe Robinson, Aaron Barnett, Gary is a runner, Earn and Burn, and Dante, and these people that I didn't set out to gain any friends at 30 something years old. I just wanted to pull up and run with some people that looked like me, because at that time there wasn't a bunch of Black folks running together in that sense. So I'm this is huge group of 200 people running through Detroit. I have to go down there and see what's up. And then I walked away from that thinking, oh, that's fun. And then 4 or 5 years later, I talk to these people every day,
Yeah.
But outside of them, my mother probably would be my mother and grandmother are probably my biggest motivations, because they've just, I think maybe not on the running side of things, but the way that I've tried to carry myself in this space and work to continue and push forward and maybe cultivate new things and do things that may be mildly inspiring to someone. I think that my mother and grandmother probably they're the reasons I am the way I am. So I guess I'd have to start with them as full motivation.
Yeah, because when I think about it, and we think about this role that sometimes you play as someone who is helping to motivate others, it's often really cool to reflect back on, all right, well, what got me going? Where did this passion come from? And I even love the mixture of different areas, and especially how, you had people who got you into running, like your sister, and people who motivated you along the run, like your mom and your grandmother. And then you have these people who you meet along the way with We Run 313. That's a tongue twister. And the way that community starts to spark and starts to build, and especially hearing about it in terms of how we experience not just running community, but also society in general. And so, what as you're getting going, and you aren't seeing a whole lot of Black men. You aren't seeing a whole lot of even just Black people in general getting involved in these communities. How important was it in that phase for y'all to kind of stamp that place in Detroit and be a presence in the community? Because again, it's now not only have you guys motivated one another, but to even think of the next step of motivating other people to be able to see that they can run too. They don't have to kind of hide. They don't have to go in the background. What's that been like for you and for the other guys that are the other folks that run 313?
Yeah, so Lance, Joe Robinson, and Lance Woods are the founders of We Run 313. So like I came along,
got them on the list.
yeah, definitely should have them on the show for sure. I mean, because when it comes to community and building, like they created that. I pulled up like a few months into them already being, and I'm not even like a part of like leadership at all. I'm just a runner that also reaps the benefits of like such a great, organization and club. So
it's your like, community, and it's part of your community, right? Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And like, so for I can speak to what I've witnessed, like for them, or with them is like you said, there's just so many, it's just a beautiful thing for, especially at the time when it started. They were in like 2019, and it was kind of like caught like everybody kind of by storm. It seemed like it's like this big group of like organized and like ambitious young Black men like trying to figure out like how do we build on this, how do we transform this to be something that can like stand the test of time, and it's not just like a 1 or 2 or 3 little thing where they meet up. And here we are like 5 years later, and they're still going strong, and they're like doing partnerships and things that like that make people feel like not only can I run, but I can do other things in the space, and I think that's where I'm a segue a lot. I'm a segue type of guy.
You're good.
So like it's I think that's where like some of these community aspects go beyond running, because I mean it's obviously important. I mean most people listening to this podcast probably are interested in running or have run,
Yeah.
But then like listening to this podcast or many other ones, or pulling up to group runs that are consistent and growing, you start to realize like, I can do other things that are my passions kind of around running, and when I first started my journey as a runner, I was definitely, I had already set my goals to try to qualify for Boston way before I like even ran into them, and I was already like headed on this journey. And then when I got with them, it just had more people to run with. But then like, as I started to grow in the space, I don't know if I was like, I don't think I was like, hey, they're doing it so I can. And I started a run club. I just started to see more, opportunities like open up in my mind to be like, okay, well, there's other things that can be done here. Then you start seeing other people's communities that they're building via like Instagram, like Believe in the Run and all these other folks that are like, doing really great stuff in the space. And I just think that these community moments are so important, not only to get the community healthy and to get people moving and to create space around running and make people feel welcome, but it's also like, how do you take that and then motivate and open the door or give people like air quotes permission to like do more and do other things? Because like the running industry is we think about like for a long time it was like, let's get Black folks running, and or just Black folks running or other marginalized groups. Let's get people out there, which is a really important thing. But then what's after that? Like the whole industry is full of like brands and companies that are for profit. They make money. like there's shoe companies that make billions of dollars.
Yeah.
There's like timing companies that like are set up that make a bunch of money every year working with races. There's races that can be put on, there's all these other things that happen around the running space. And I think that some of these things, like I guarantee I don't even know the number, but eventually someday you'll look back and like We Run 313, people out of We Run 313 have started companies and brands and things out of that, not because like We Run 313 said, hey, go do this, but just the idea of like, oh, there's more to be done. Like there's more. It's not just running. It's like, this is life. You get into one thing, you like a thing, so you try to build a lifestyle around the thing that you love. And the Society Track Club, like from Mac, like if you told her that she's going to be starting a run club, and I'm sure in 2-3 years, this could be more so something like of a business venture or something on the side of this. Maybe she doesn't make money through the run club, but there's something along the way where it's going to be like this running thing opened up to a lifestyle, like a thing that could help other people outside of just getting people's feet moving. So it's like, I just think the community part is so important in so many different ways, not just around like, let's get moving, which is obviously, what we hope to do is get people moving. But at the same time, like, how do you show people that, because if you told me that I'd be in Berlin, like running with Adidas, for a marathon, like that's ridiculous. Like even if at the 17th run with a group, but then you start to see other people start to branch out, and that's how you like go, oh, okay, well, I can see a future here.
And so you're looking just around, or even brands or groups, or I mean, like even this podcast, like folks are obviously coming to you, because you are so out there, because you're not just a part of Run 313, but because, you're going out and you're doing a lot of this stuff. You're very big in helping a lot of folks in content creation for running and stuff like that. So as you're out there, like what's the message that Tommie Runz is getting out, when it comes to talking about how big this concept of community is? I mean, especially when it can get so easy to get cynical around the money that's made around running and how dangerous that can be and the lengths that people will go to. What are the things that you're looking for? What are the things that you're promoting? What are the things that you're doing out there to help show folks that running it's this wholesome sport? It's a little bit more, but basically it's walking out your front door and just being able to put one foot in front of the other. And eventually it gets more than that, but for them to like take that first step.
I mean, I think that I guess if I had to like boil it down to like something short, I think it would just be tell your story, tell that, and that's it really. Because I think, that's why I always pushed against influencer, because it sometimes like, I think there's more to that. Like, I think there should be categories under influencer or around influencer that kind of make it less like, oh, like an influencer does this, and then this person does this, and this category does something different. Because I think sometimes when we get into like seeing what worked for other people, we start to build a potential future or a present moment around what works on social media. And then somehow in there, we lose the fact that, we got sober and, changed our lives and blah, blah, blah. Like I think that I'd be more successful on like from a number standpoint if I just from the beginning decided like my story may not be as important as like making good content and then like doing what works for the like the machine. So no shade to anybody that has done that, but it's just like, at some point I made a decision to like, okay, my story is important enough where it's not all about, positioning this piece of content. And that's why like I'm always going to lean more towards like tell your story, because if with this podcast you decide like, this is the type of podcast that works for everybody else, so I'm going to do that, then you're like robbing people of the way that you personally, Andrew, would handle and work a podcast. Because if I didn't tell my story, maybe, I'm not saying I saved anybody's life or anything like that, but the fact that I'm open and tell my story every time I do and talk about sobriety and talk about being Black in the space and talk about like creating a future in this environment, that's when people reach out. And it's not about, like, some people will say like, hey, which shoe's your favorite shoe, which is cool. But then when somebody says like, hey, you shared your story about sobriety, I'm 90 days in, or I'm someone that I know suffers through addiction, and I appreciate you speaking out. That's what matters to me more than anything. So everybody has a story. Everybody has a thing that like really resonates. And I think that we're robbing the world if all of us aren't figuring out a way to tell our story within the thing that we do, whether it's a podcast or whether it's creating content or whether it's like you have like an apparel brand. Like everything that we've ever seen work and really catch is there's a story behind it. Like if you look at Virgil Abloh, like if you look at the things that he created, you may look at it like it's just like a piece, like a shoe or this or that, like a, Off-White. It's just like this clothing. But if you look at the story that he was trying to tell through all the pieces and the collabs and the things, there's more to that. And I think that's why things work. That's why run clubs blow up. That's why brands really resonate and grow within a culture, is because they're telling a story that hasn't been told, and that's because it's their story. So if my message is literally just tell your story, and if it's through doing lives or stories or static posts and you're a photographer, whatever it is, figure out how to tell your story in these moments.
I mean, I think that that's such a vital piece of wisdom, because, I even hear like when you talk about your sister, like struggling to like name herself as a runner. And, I know you've probably heard it as much as anybody else, but it's like, what's that line when I'm a runner? And I always think for folks, it's being able to claim that part of themselves, being able to claim what they're doing, how they're doing it, and even what's gotten them there. And that's one of the things that I've always appreciated about your story is, there's never any shame in how you got to where you are. It's a part of you. It's where you've been. It's what you've done. And I wonder how many folks in this space, the running space, but even more so like society at large. I mean, even just thinking about the running space, like the amount of just hurt and pain and struggles and everything. I mean, I can't tell you how many times, like, on this podcast, I've had, eating disorders or people who've experienced like violence or oppression or anything like that. Or even just people who have, struggled with injuries, people who have struggled, like, when they're telling their stories, that becomes a part of who they are. And for you, what was I don't know if this will make sense, but what was kind of the moment where you knew that who I am is made by where I've been, and to not necessarily be like ashamed of who I am, right? Because, I think you can even see it. I mean, I lead a run club at a brewery, but to even see that, hey, not everybody is going to be someone who wants to drink alcohol. There are going to be people who are sober, could be people who struggle. Like, those are things that we need to deal with in community. Like, what was the point, and what did it mean for you to be able to say and claim, like, this is who I am, Tommie Runz?
Well, I think, so when I first got sober, like, to get sober, when I first got sober, I went to meetings, right? And the first meeting I went to, it was a room full. Like, I walked in, I was like, let me try this out, because a therapist recommended, like, hey, I think you have an issue. You should go to this meeting and go with this guy that she knew. So I went in, I'm like, I'll give it a shot. And I went to this place. It was like in a suburb of Detroit, a nice area. And I walk up to all these nice cars outside, or nicer than the one I had at the moment, right? And I'm like, this isn't it. But I walked in anyway. It was a room full of like middle-aged to older, like white folks. And I'm like, this isn't it. Like, this isn't going to be, this isn't for me, but we'll try it. And then like I ended up going like, not to get too like into the weeds of like, AA and stuff like that, but it was 30 something people in there. I think I might have like been like the 13th or 14th share or something like that, as we went around. And those people in front of me, before me, looked nothing like me. There's no chance that they had the background that I had, right? But they all told basically my story back to me through their story. And that saved, and that's when a moment I said, even though none of these people are like me or look like me or whatever, these are my people. So people sharing their real stories saved my life, and that's why I always say, share real stories. And then I had the opportunity to be on Believe in the Run. So Believe in the Run had Eliud Kipchoge on it during the pandemic. They had him on a live back when people were doing lives. And then I joked and sent them a message. I didn't even know they knew me. I don't think they did. But I sent a message and said, like, good interview with Kipchoge. I guess I'm next. And Thomas from Believe in the Run was like, yeah, sure. And I'm like, I was joking, but sure, great. A week later, after Kipchoge, I'm telling my story about how I started running and stuff like that. I didn't really talk too much about the sobriety at all. He asked me a couple questions to like lead me towards like, let's talk about the, sobriety thing. And I had been so used to talking about my story a little bit, or my job's story, my job's purpose, you know what I'm saying? Like for like a living. So but I would never segue into like, I used to wake up drinking in the morning, you know what I'm saying? So, so as soon as he asked me about something, I answered it lightly and moved on. And then I hung up the thing, we got off the live and I was happy, but then at the same time, I was more disappointed in myself than happy for that opportunity, because I didn't tell my story. And what do I have the name Tommie Runz for? That's not my real like birth name. Why am I doing this if it's not to like tell the truth? Right.
Yeah.
So the next one, I said, next time I get an opportunity and somebody asks anything about it, I'm gonna tell the truth. And it was Rambling Runner. And he asked me about it and I went all the way there. And then the amount of people, this is a long story, the amount of people that reached out to me after that with real stories that almost made me cry, the real like stories that made me feel like I was important in that moment for sharing my weaknesses. That was the moment that I knew that this is who I am. This is important. And no matter what that looks like, I have to figure out a way to continue to tell like that truth, and that's the same thing for anybody though, like eating disorders or whatever it is, because how you said like there's so many people that come on this pod that end up having like share moments of like hurt or suffering or whatever. There's more people on this planet suffering than not, like in some way. Like it's not even being dramatic. Like like I'm not to be like dark, but to live is to suffer in a way. Like we all have to go through things, right? So like, why do we all act like we're not doing, like it's not happening? Like who are we helping by like acting like I didn't have an eating disorder and I'm just perfect now? Like people want to know how you got through that so that they can get through it too. But that's how I knew, is when I shared and people gave me confirmation that that's real and that's what I need to push towards.
I wonder what a run with you is like.
Oh, it's not like this. It's not like this. It's like to sit down with me is like this, but like running, it's like we got to keep it light. I mean, we can get a little deep on running. So my friends, Joe, Aaron, Gary, Ern, when we run, it's like arguing, yelling, laughing, and everything in between. But it's not like super deep conversation. I can't think and speak as well running as some people, and it really bothers me. Let's talk about real hurt. Let's talk about real hurt and pain.
Yeah.
When people are talking and like telling me like this, like just well thought out like stuff, like I'm like, yo, I can't even do that. Let's stop and we can talk. But other than that, I just can't. It doesn't happen for me. Like it doesn't.
It doesn't click as much. No.
I can think really well. Like by my, like if a lot of my ideas, like the podcast that I have, start like a lot of ideas come from running. But when it comes to like, I just let them do the argument. I laugh and add jokes here and there.
But I mean, it does kind of bring out a point though of to me, it always feels like there's a vulnerability in running. And even if it's the conversations on the run or conversations after the run, there's a vulnerability around us because we are opening ourselves up to, not to the vulnerability, but we're opening ourselves up because we're tiring ourselves out. We're doing something great and amazing together. And as I see folks gathering in community and getting together, I even think about going on walks in my running group right now and walking with some folks and just some of the conversations we have both before, during, and after, and all of that space. What is it like for you in we run 313, or, if you're out in Grand Rapids, or, from those local communities, to running in Berlin, to running in, any of these major marathons, are you seeking out stories? I've seen you do a bunch of live shows and stuff like that. What's the role that a lot of that plays in you encouraging folks to share their stories, to be a part of that journey for them? Just like for you to notice, hey, I need to share this. How are you playing that role for others to do it too?
Well, I mean, I love that question. I mean, I just started down like that path of like attempting to provide a space for me to share things that I've learned, or even my opinions on things that I haven't been able to exercise yet, or tips for people, because people will ask me stuff like sometimes like, oh, how do I? So what I did was I created this thing, how like on Instagram there's channels, I had one, and it was like, I don't know how many people I had in it, but it was just like I just created one and people started jumping in, and it was nothing there. Every now and then I would like share something that I couldn't share to like my main profile because it was like embargoed or whatever, not embargoed, but like I just couldn't share the picture yet. But it was I one day, I forgot what it was, but it was just like, what, community is everything, like, and I looked up the meaning of community, and it means like collaboration and communication and like investment, and investing in each other. And so I'm like, I deleted the whole thing. So it was like 500-600 people. I just deleted it and then reopened it, called it the community, and reposted the link at 0 people, and here's what it is. If you want to be a part of this, join. So, and then as soon as people join, I'm like, let's do Zoom calls, which is so not 2024.
Yeah.
So, but it's like this moment where like, I get on, people can ask me whatever they want to about content or business or whatever about the running space, or whatever they want. Like, and I'll share that moment. And this is my first like venture of like trying to like give back in that sense. But I think it actually kind of started when I had the opportunity to get 3 bibs for New York City 2024, the one that just passed. After it had sold out, it was done and closed, but I was able to work and get 3 bibs. So what I did was I posted it online and said, if you're a black, brown runner and haven't run New York before, I'm trying to create more space and opportunity, even if it's only 3. Mm-hmm. And it got such great feedback. And then we randomly picked 3 people through like a random name generator after people emailed me their story. So me and my mom read through all these stories, and it was just like this random, like this crazy heartfelt moment. And I said, well, whoever wins, if whatever you need, I'll try to help you tell your story, tell you whatever. But the 3 that end up winning did a wonderful job. But I had the chance to like share, to be there in New York as well. I also ran through like a different way. I didn't give myself a bib at that moment. It was just for those 3 people. I ended up running with New Balance, and got a bib from them later. But I had a chance to like see. I ran with Silas, who's also from this area. He ended up winning, which is actually kind of funny. Nice. And Silas is one of the 3 founding members of Sparkling Sundays. That's here. I think it's like one Sunday a month. I ran with him, so I paced him, and he wanted. Because I figured the time that he ran, I figured I could try to help him. So I ran with him, and then at the end I circled back, and I was able to see Mickey, who was also on the course. She won, and she gave me the biggest hug, and it was just like this moment of like, wow, like this means something. Like, so who are we to have like a platform or a thing that then we don't help other people? So that's this is new to me, like giving back, but I don't like the thought of having these followers or this platform without like using it to do something for other people. Because like if you have 100,000 followers, like do something for somebody, like,
Yeah. And again, it kind of circles us right back to, where we're kind of when we started, of influencer, not influence, but someone who is doing something to make an impact in the running community. Clearly it's something where when we get involved in community, it's not that we're just making runners, right? I'm not here to just churn out runners. And even when I'm thinking about what it looks like to coach and what it looks like to have a coaching, a handful of folks that I'm coaching. And one of the things I find myself thinking about is I don't just want to churn out runners. Like I don't just want runners who are coming in. They're like, their goal is to qualify for Boston. And it's like, all right, cool. You're going to qualify for Boston. But I also, it always feels like there's something deeper. Like there's something more, I don't want to hear like, okay, I want to qualify for Boston. It's like, well, what makes you want to qualify for Boston? Right. What about that makes it feel attainable? What about that makes it feel like an accomplishment? Or, I got folks we got folks in our run club who are trying to go after 6 stars, not in 1 year, but just, over the course of their life. And I always think to myself, one, because the marathon just as a race is so like difficult for me. Like I just don't see myself as a marathoner. But also because I find that for them to be able to connect that to something about themselves, even if it's like, I want to push myself. I want to, like a lot of folks, I just want to know I can do it, because they've built up all of this stamina. They've built up all of this endurance, and they just like, I want to see if I can do it. I want to see if I'm strong enough, and the amount of ways that opens up conversation for folks. So for those of you who don't know, the 6 world majors, well, formerly
7.
Formerly 6 world majors. You got to do it again.
Yeah.
There's 3 in the spring, 3 in the fall. So you said you did the 3 in the spring, which I followed that journey, and then you got some bibs for the fall ones. What was it like to kind of take that story seemingly around the world?
It's just crazy. Like it's just a crazy, like the whole journey started with Osaka, actually, because I did Osaka right before Tokyo. Mizuno invited me to go to Osaka because they had the shoe, the one with no heel,
Yep.
Like they had that dropping. Actually, it wasn't even that. I think it was that was what there was. It was a mystery shoe at the time, but they had that going on, and they invited me, and I'm like, wow, like that's Japan, and I'm like, wow, I wonder when Tokyo is. And it's 7 days later. So I'm like, okay, cool. Like I'll say yes to this. And if there's a way that I could possibly get to do Tokyo while I'm there, that would be great. Cause like the thought, I didn't think that I would be ever invited to Japan, period. So like, hey, let's figure this out. But that was really cool because it started off so meaningful. Like, I mean, obviously all the rest of the 6 majors were great. I mean, I ran 7 marathons in a year. But to start off with Mizuno in Osaka, like that trip was so special to me. Like my mom flew with me to Osaka. We stayed there for 13 days, and then I ran Tokyo, while there. But it was just so special because like that during that time frame, it meant a lot to me because my dad passed when he was 39 of a stroke. I was already 39, but I was like, our days overlapped like while I was there, like the days that I was officially on this planet longer than him. Was like while we were in Osaka together with my mom and Mizuno, and they knew about the story because I talked about it a lot going to it. So like, I just want to shout Mizuno out for that because they didn't just have it seemed like they didn't just have me there like talk about the shoe, like they were like leaning into like this story and all that stuff. So it was amazing. But just being able to do my thing and get ready for each one of these different marathons and do it in the way that I do and talk about the things that I talk about on my story and in my posts. It could be a story about it could be a post, a whole reel about the long run, but then somehow I'm segueing in the conversation, in that caption to like something that's more meaningful to me, So it's an honor to do these things, but I think it's just more importantly, it's like I've been blessed and lucky to be able to continue to work with brands, even though I'm not necessarily, in my opinion, doing it like maybe the influencer marketer position would have asked for it to be done. So like that's just been really special, and that means like the world to me that brands see a little bit past like the algorithm a bit to say like this is important and we want to be a part of that. So taking that around the world, I guess, has just been it's humbling and it's amazing. And I hope that like next year 2025 brings more opportunity to do things different and continue to push in the direction of community and influence and impact. over superficial feeling,
Yeah. Well, I think that's for me, that's one of the things that honestly attracted me to your journey, to your story was just, excuse me, was the realness and the authenticity to it. I've never struggled with addiction. I've never struggled, it's not my struggle, but to hear your story and to hear the realness and, even hearing the way that you've talked about it on several other podcasts and ones that you host and ones that you've been on of, you're someone who isn't that you're not sacrificing who you are to cozy up to somebody or to for the brands to get what they want. It's always the true intentional Tommie Runz that folks are getting, and for that to kind of come out and be a part of this journey. I love that you mentioned bringing your mom to Osaka and it kind of being this point of overlapping when your dad passed away and your birthday and all of these things, because it shows in a lot of ways that the best vision of community that we have is when we all bring our intentional selves, algorithm aside. At the end of the day, if we're doing things for an algorithm, we're not doing things for ourselves. Right. Or if we're doing things for a brand, but it's at the expense of who we actually are, then what does that mean for us? And I think that becomes super important, especially as we move into this, whatever this running boom that we're experiencing right now is. Yeah. It's so important.
No, I think, and I think like to even like tie this back to like how run clubs have seen that boom and that like running boom we're seeing right now. I kind of like remember like for a little bit there, it was like the dating app thing. That seems like that's kind of died off a little bit, like that thing. But so I think that was like a weird moment, for running a little. Like it was a lot of it was a little cringy, like some of the content that was being made around like this moment, But at the same time, though, I think that like sparked a lot of the popularity in run clubs, run culture that we saw. But I think it's because you started to see clubs and people make content that showed the personality of the people at the run more so than just running. So then you start to see like someone sitting watching goes like, it's not like this like curated, and everything wasn't as curated around the run club as it had been in the past, it seemed. You started to see more like kind of like behind the scenes. You started to see more of the people talking and people bringing it, like more influencers or people creating content, like coming to the run to show the actual people in the club. Then you started to see more personality. Then people start to see, oh, there's someone like me there. I think I could add to this, or I feel comfortable because I saw these type of people there. And I think, it was funny, it was weird and all that at the same time. But I think what happened there was we started to see more personality, which means more realness showed from each club and just running in general. Because a lot of times for people that don't run or don't feel like they're a runner, why would I go to a run club? No one, in my mind, no one talks. They just huddle and then they go really fast and run. That's probably what people think, But now that you start to see even more content around the actual run clubs, you start to see more personality, you start to see more realness and go, oh, well, I'm invited technically because I saw 6 people that look just like me. Or they asked them how the run was and they said, oh, it's terrible. This is my first run ever. And I feel, I feel great though, Then people pull up, like it's important that we hold on to like that moment of like, how did this happen? Like, how was this? What was important about this whole boom? Like, what was different than last year and the year before? And other than the fact that everybody started running after COVID or during COVID, this was more so. I feel like people started to see themselves out there and in the clubs and in like these situations, So we have to remember that and not go back to just like being structured and so like sterile. Like it's real. People have issues and things and they come to the run clubs and stuff like that to meet and create community and have fun.
Well, and people don't want to be a part of something where they can't see themselves.
100%.
And so that becomes the even more important part. And, something that I harken back to when I was talking with Mac, where, that's when she recommended, you and Rashad as folks who are huge in the Black running community of, it does us nothing if we're creating community, but we're not intentional about what that community looks like, about who's a part of that community, about how we're creating community. It's one of the, I get guilty of it, or I get called out on it. Walkers are runners, because they're a part of our running community. We have people who are a part of our run club who are a part. They walk every time, but the community that they feel, the community that they experience, and the way they experience our community is so engaging. Like some of us will be running back, and they're just like hooting, hollering, and cheering, and we're doing it back for them. There's something about, like you said, that realness, that authenticity, when you bring it out in folks and when you let folks know, like, hey, this is who we are. And again, it comes back to that telling the story, right? We cannot do this, like you said, if we sterilize everything. It's like the folks who they make every run seem easy. They make every run seem like it's nothing. Like, oh, I just went out and casually jogged like a 5-minute mile.
Yeah, that's funny.
But to really show the realness and the rawness behind it, that helps us to see, even professional runners nowadays starting to kind of get a little bit behind the scenes and letting us know,
it has to.
Every day's not easy.
Yeah.
I think of like Emma Coburn, who's just had so many like heartbreaks this year, and but you've been able to see it's like, but I'm not done yet. I'm not done yet. I'm on my bike, 1,000 hours a day, and getting things done. Like seeing that realness, it allows it to feel attainable, right? I'm never gonna feel like I'm never gonna be an Olympian. That's gone for me. But seeing how professional athletes sometimes deal with these injuries, I'm like, all right, well, if they can do it,
man,
if
they can,
I can get
if
over
they can
this.
do that, then I can do my version of it, and I think it's everything. It's like there's so many different ways to like share like the real, because like a lot of times, sometimes like you'll be watching somebody's thing that's kind of inspiring to you, but they make everything look so tough and hard, like like I don't want to do that, like that's on another part where it's like sometimes people make everything look so easy and it's kind of cap a little bit, and just easy ran 7 flat, like okay, like all right, you know what I'm saying. Or you have people that like everything was like running's tough, it sucks, it's hard, you got to be this, you got to be that, like bro, like it doesn't have to be either way. It doesn't have to be super easy and it doesn't have to be super hard. Like it literally can just be like it could just be what it is. Like that's like one thing about like golf. Like golf is a really tough sport, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, but people play it and they're just terrible. But they spend their money, they go, they have fun, they have some drinks on the course, they got in a golf cart and they do their thing, and no one's like standing around like golf is so hard and this is tough, you got to be whatever. Or and it's there's not a weird moment of like I'm better or I'm worse because of this. It just is what it is. And I think when running can be more like that, which I think it is now, and people kind of let go of these like weird notions that everything has to be super easy or super hard. I think it'd be a little easier for people to see us doing the thing, and that's why I never talk about like if a run was just oh yeah, I just went for an easy run today, and because I know my easy pace is wild for somebody else. Like that is ridiculous. And then also my easy pace is super slow to some other people that I've met, So like, let's not even go there, because it doesn't even matter. Like if you want to say I ran 8 miles, great. Maybe somebody can like hope to run 8 miles someday. But having this thing where you got to like explain and divulge like how easy or tough something was, and like that's a bragging point, like we got to let that part go. Like I don't think that's the content we need. We don't need any more content with someone either minimizing how easy something was or whatever, or making it sound more difficult than it is, because who cares?
Well, and again, it goes back to sort of that inclusive nature of getting in running, right? Is, if we truly want this sport to be accessible to anybody, I think that there's a lot of work that the long-standing running community has to do to be able to say like, all right, like, cool, I can run a X, marathon, but that doesn't make the person who's doing it at a different pace than me any worse or even any better. And to even be able to build community around that, to say, look at the breadth of what's going on here. Like, look at like whether you're first or last, whether, you get back, and whether you're the first one to buy beer or you're the last one or whatever, it doesn't matter, because what is to me, thinking my joy at Run Club is the time I spent with other people. And so if that means slowing what I think up or speeding it up or whatever, or, taking some time and walking, doing things like that, coaching kids. Like I tell the parents of the kids all the time, because, they'll look at me and they're like, oh, they're like holding you back. I'm like, yeah, but I enjoy doing this. Like if I need to get miles at a certain pace, like I'll do that another time. But when we put that in front of community and we allow that to be there, I think that becomes such a huge and vital part of how we do this thing together. And it's all about how those stories play together that really begins to lead into a lot of that.
Yeah, and it's like, and I think for me, people, because I've run a lot of marathons the last couple of years, and people are like, oh, when are you gonna are you still trying to run fast and PR and all stuff like that? Like, I'm like, yeah, but that's for me. Like, I'm not necessarily like trying to PR or run fast for anybody, because I mean, honestly, if I was to go, my PR is 2:46:59, but if I went to go if I tried to go run a 2:38, how many people in that marathon would be finished before me? Like, not that makes what I did any less, but that's not the point for me. Like, I'm not like, hey guys, look how fast I ran. Like, that's literally just for me and my own personal achievement, and I want to try to work to that point. That's it. And I think that that's really what we need to focus on, is like, we can all have our own goals and stuff like that, but to make it like your personality, or to make it like, look what I did. And even when I'm like sharing like all 6 marathons, like it's a really cool thing to have 6 majors. Like, it's a really cool thing to have done. But then I also like try to toe this line of like, only thing that happened for me special was like, I just happened to have like these opportunities that showed up for me at the right times. Like, I'm not saying like, look what I did in a way, hopefully, that is like off-putting. Like, the point of all this and sharing all this is to be like, oh, cool, someone can do it, and I like this person, so maybe I can do something too. You know what I mean? But I think once we start getting to the point where it sounds like we're just like super braggy, it just pushes people away. Like, in either people, unfollow you because everything's about you, or people see it and they go, no, I ain't trying that running thing, because I went to this one run club and everybody was so like, yeah, I just did a 7:30. Like, like, I just feel like sometimes we gotta remember that people don't care, and it's about community.
Yeah. Let my story inspire you, not define who you need to be.
Hey man, who said that?
I have no. I did right now.
Okay. All right. Yeah.
I don't know. But I need to look that one up. I mean, I don't like. That's just what I was thinking the whole time you were saying that. Is let my story inspire you, but don't let it define who you think you need to be. And to me, that becomes what community is. Because you're right. I mean, like I desperately, not desperately, but I mean, I'd love to run a sub 90-minute half marathon, and I'm going to get there. But I don't want I don't want other people to think that just because I'm doing it, that becomes your standard, that becomes your bar. But if you can gain inspiration, because like I also tell people, it's like, so earlier this year, like I ran a 2:05 half marathon, helping a buddy, like, but that was the best effort that I could put in at the time. I've run half marathons at 2:30. I've also run a half marathon at 1:33. My one and only marathon, my marathon PR is 4 hours and 56 minutes. Like, don't let my standards, don't let who I am define you. But like the fact that we can get out there, that we can continue to build, continue to grow. And, times that I thought were impossible when I was in my early to mid 20s, are now all shattered and broken. And so you think to yourself, like, okay, and I mean, even like looking at your story, like thinking about the journey that you've been on, it's like, don't let who you think you need to be diminish who you can be. And I think that becomes such an important part of being in community, is like, if your story or someone else's story can inspire us to go and do things, to get out there and run and be out there, whether they're doing, a 5-hour marathon or a 2.5-hour marathon. I think that's what it becomes about.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like inspiration and like learning is just not linear, you know?
Yeah.
It's not like because I run a 120 and you run a 130, like I can't learn from you. Like that's ridiculous, you know? And I think that's the way, I mean, running is a numbers game when it comes to like race day, you know? So we just like hierarchy everything as if like someone that's super fast can't learn something from you, you know?
Yeah.
And that's literally community is like, it's, everybody learns from everybody. Everybody can, you know, maybe you don't learn something about running from me. Maybe you learn something about how to tell, you know, your specific story or whatever it is. And I think it's just the run clubs that do well and the run groups in the companies around run that do well is I think the ones that have figured that part out and they figured out how to cultivate a community that isn't just one person. You know, it's not just one type of person. It's many different groups can resonate with the mission of, you know, this one thing. You know, like Apple, like it's I mean, everybody has, you know, so many different people have an Apple product. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And if they made the mistake somewhere along the road of like you had to be this one type of person, we wouldn't even know what Apple is.
Yeah. Well, great wisdom. Very awesome. All right, Tommie, let's hit these into podcast questions as we close our time out. All right. What is your favorite distance to run?
I think unfortunately, I think it's the marathon.
All right.
Unfortunately.
We'll let it slide. We'll let it slide this one time. What is your favorite thing to eat post run? What's your favorite food, snack, meal? What are you grabbing?
I don't know. Any type of food really, but my favorite pre-marathon, like if like a couple days before, is always this Indian dish called bindi. It's a okra like dish. Yeah, always like 2-3 days before. Go for it.
And finally, Tommie, can you give our listeners a reason to join their local run club?
Why wouldn't you? Like, go do it. Have some fun. Try a few of them. Go to all of them. And you might end up going to all of them the rest of your running life, because there's something to be had from all of them. There's different communities and different like energies that you can get from it. Some of us like running alone, but just pull up to one every now and then, just because it's like you could inspire other people can inspire you. You can gain a couple new friends like I did. Just do it. Why not?
Awesome. Thank you so much for that inspiration.
Thanks, man.
So like I mentioned in the intro, Tommie is someone whose journey I have followed for quite a while, someone that I've heard the story before. In fact, I'm going to share the link to that Rambling Runner episode that he talks about in this podcast, where he first tells that story, and shout out to Matt Chittum for that podcast. That's one that I love to listen to. And so when he said it, I knew exactly what episode he was talking about and where this whole thing started. And so I'm going to share that episode. Check it out in the podcast notes and you can listen to that. I loved hearing how much of an impact We Run 313 has had in his journey. You see, this isn't about someone starting a run club, right? Tommie just comes in and says, I didn't start this run club, but man, what they have meant to me along my journey has meant so much. And we see how that has played out. In fact, I'm hoping, actually, I've got Joe Robinson booked for an interview. And so I'm excited to be able to hopefully be bringing that at some point in time. Maybe, towards the end of the month or beginning of January, to hear the story of We Run 313 and the impact they have made. I mean, you see it in Tommie's journey, but to hear the story of how it all got started and where it came from, that's going to be even more special. But looking at Tommie's journey and how much that has impacted who he is, how he is engaged in the running community, just not even just in Detroit, but even across the country, across the world, as we heard. Just such an amazing grounding. We heard about him talking about all of these different accomplishments, but it all came back to that nature of tell your story. And for those of you who follow me on Instagram, you will have seen in my Instagram stories, I shared some of the creators Spotify Wrapped stuff. I know a lot of y'all have shared Spotify Wrapped, and you saw that I am a storyteller with this podcast. That is the nature of this podcast, and so I love it. And so to be able to tell that story, to be able to help to see that nature, what a joy it was to bring Tommie on to share what has happened in his life, where he's been, and even where he's going. I want to thank you for hanging out with me here on Run, Build, Grow. If you have a great story, I'd love to hear it. email me at andrew@runninrev.com and we can get you booked for a podcast recording. And don't forget, connect with me on Instagram, Blue Sky, Strava, Substack. You'll find those links in the show notes. I publish and put content all over those places. You know, if today's episode gave you a spark, don't forget to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your podcasts, or head over to runbuildgrow.com to catch every podcast. You can go back and listen to the catalog. And even if you subscribe, have future episodes just automatically pop up in your feed. Got an extra minute? Jump on to Apple Podcasts, leave a quick rating or review. If you're on Spotify, drop a rating and a comment on this episode and other episodes you listen to. You know, it's a simple way to help others discover the show and even let me know what's resonating with you. And here's the deal. If you leave a review, I'll give you a shout out right here in the next episode. Want to go the extra mile? Support the podcast and keep it growing strong by heading to buymeacoffee.com/runandrev. Whether it's a one-time tip because you just absolutely enjoyed this episode, or if you want to become a regular supporter and a monthly member supporter of this podcast, every contribution helps this community grow on and off the run. Thanks for being here and for being part of this journey. Until next time, go crush it out there, and as always, make every mile count.